For a further discussion on this, I'm joined by Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Thembi Nkadimeng. A very good afternoon to you, Minister. Thank you for your time. As my colleague Ziniko Mhlaba points out in his package, is that all speakers have agreed that when it comes to the current legislation, it has not worked. And of course, the State Capture Commission of Inquiry showed us countless examples and proof of how state capture and corruption can take place at local government level. What is your input on this matter?
Well, thank you very much, and good afternoon to the viewers. You cannot legislate corruption. You cannot legislate ethics. I think that's what the stakeholders, business, government, law enforcement agencies and ourselves agree. But it's a great stepping stone in assisting law enforcement agencies, in assisting the minister or MEC by creating regulations which governs the space, which also ensures that there's compliance and you can be able to hold people accountable. I mean, I'll make a good example about, we adopted last year a code of conduct for councillors, and I'm sure you might have seen what happened in Eguruleni yesterday, just a fresh demonstration. Does it mean we were wrong by creating a code of conduct for councillors because it is useless because councillors still fight? I don't think so. You create that code, you legislate on it so that if there is behavior like of yesterday, councillors who knows what is the decorum of the house can then be held accountable. And that responsibility falls with the Speaker and the MEC of Gauteng and can be escalated to the Minister. Otherwise, we will not have laws, will not have anything that guides even law enforcement officers on what is a crime. You will not have scheduled crime. We'll say, let's not deal with legislation because it doesn't help, it doesn't stop people not to kill. We all know do not kill, but it happens. But it guides you on saying, if it has happened, what then are the steps that law enforcement, judges and everybody else could do? Is the same with us. We are saying we are not giving up, that we are having challenges with regard to management, corruption, maladministration in government, but we're not going to fold our hands and say, okay, fair and good, let it continue unabated. We're not going to try and keep the system. We're jointly with the NPA, with the Special Investigative Unit, with the Ethical Institute, together to come to say, one, we want to develop ethical leaders who know that they were accountable, who know that there will be consequences when they are not accountable, but who will also know that they are responsible to save the citizens of South Africa. And I think that's what the effectiveness of ethical leadership is about at local government. It's about me and you receiving the service from the money that comes from the public purse to where it is supposed to go and intended to go and spend purposefully. And the AG was able to go through material irregularities that are at the municipal level. SIU is dealing with about 324 cases in municipalities to the tune of about 60 billion, and about 105 are already on the road. So there is progress that the code is giving in ensuring that we keep maladministration and corruption.
While the focus moves to prosecutions and accountability, there's also been questions asked about the leadership in municipalities, how much of a massive role that in itself leadership has to play in ensuring that municipalities are run effectively and getting people out of the system, those who are not meant to be there, getting them out of the system. How imperative is it to tighten leadership and ensure that you have the right people in the right roles to steer the ship forward?
You will recall that in 2021, on the 1st of November, the President signed the amendment of the Municipal Structures Act, which was specifically talking about reading, creating competency framework on how you appoint and audit. For example, we took to Cabinet on Wednesday a report on the audit of all CFOs in municipalities, and 94% complies. And what does that say to us? Is that it's not a lack of skills. There are chartered accountants in the main. It's not a lack of skill, but it's a lack of willingness to do the right thing. which gets into what we are supposed to do in terms of enhancement on what the law says and the regulation says in terms of reading them out of council. But that's the responsibility of councillors. What did we do to enhance councillors? A new code for MPEC. Salga did, we have now endorsed that MPEC is a must in council, and all councils have established 257 of them MPEC. All their chairpersons have been trained. It is now by law mandatory for MPEC to take a report on a quarterly basis to council, for council to know and submit that to the Auditor General for real-time auditing. We've had problems with our disaster funds. Immediately we release the money into a municipality, we copy the AG for AG to do real-time auditing on the funds that are spent on the basis of not necessarily, in most instances, if it's disaster, there is a waiver that you don't necessarily have to follow to the latter, supply chain management, and that's why we've been recording losses. So there's quite a lot that has been done in terms of capacity development, in terms of enhancing the legislation. Now we're dealing with a last leg of consequence management. And we submit these cases because as we reviewed them with the AG, in fact, in total, they are around 800. We're talking about 324 because we audited with the AG and we're still going through, and we hand over to law enforcement agencies where we do see that there is a trail that from a layman we could be able to detect. But we still are going to hand over the 500 to law enforcement agencies for further investigation.
So how do you impart ethics in public servants? Because, I mean, the argument can be that, prosecuting corrupt public servants alone in the private sector won't end corruption. You've got to root them out the system and, of course, impart some sort of ethics within public servants. How do you go about that?
No, in fact, it's not a government responsibility alone to deal with ethics. I'll give you an example of this. That is why we brought civil society, we brought business. I mean, in 8 months, government dissolved the Sobotla. It's a history in local government. Elections were held in November 2021, you know very well. In September of 2022, we realized that the outcome of the elections, democratic as they were, gave us leaders, particularly at council, who were not ethical, who were not assisting in running and delivering services. We dissolved that council, which is a last measure. In 90 days, we held new elections. I can tell you now, the dissolved council was better than the council that got re-elected in the Northwest.
And what about the perception? Pardon the interruption.
It's a community thing.
Okay.
Come again?
What about the perceptions of local government authorities dealing with budgets? I mean, assuming that the budget is personal and not benefiting the public like it should.
Well, look, that's what I'm saying. It's a community thing. Where are councillors coming from? They come from the neighborhood of what makes a council, depending on a number. In this example, I think there are 24 or 26 wards in the Tsobotla. So they are residents of the Tsobotla. I dissolved the residents of the Tsobotla. I re-elected from the residents of the Tsobotla. But I'm still struggling to cut on corruption. But it's so inherent to such an extent that officials are stopped by the community to perform their functions. They are harassed. So you can't do it alone. Yes, you can write a legislation, you can do a code of conduct, you can do everything that is within the ambit of the law and the constitution to run and regulate a municipality. But you need additional assistance. That's where the community comes from. That's why we're talking about whistleblowers, their protection, and the protection of officials who most of them wants to do the right thing, but the system inherently is giving them problems. And how do you get rid of all those? We have got, for example, a database of officials who have banned and they shouldn't be employed in the public service coming from a local government. I think we're sitting at around 289. These are previous cases, mostly emanating from the corruption that I'm saying is being investigated and is in court led by the SIU. So there's work that is being done, but we still have quite a lot to do to ensure that the municipal space becomes better and the money that is there. In fact, if you look now, municipalities are choosing most not to spend because it's difficult to spend.
Yeah.
There are communities, the projects get hijacked. Sometimes they are forced to award in a wrong way. I mean, you go to a Zobotla in council, you will be scared yourself. So there is assistance that needs to come from all quarters of society in making sure that we assist even the good officials whose intention is to do the right thing. And that's what today was about.
Very well. Thank you so much, Minister. Let's leave it there for now. Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Thembi Nkadimeng there.